Welcome to the Artificial Future Podcast, our Sunday morning impromptu podcast where Jesse and I come in. I have to buy him donuts, and we talk about everything that happened in the previous week regarding exciting new artificial intelligence and the impact on the world and our society and jobs and all the rest of it. The image that I have behind me here is one that was generated from Midjourney, and let me bring that up for you here. There we go. The prompt went something like this: show me self-driving with a human sitting in the back seat. And because it heard FSD, apparently it decided, let's do a likeness of Elon. Now, this is probably what Elon might have looked like 30 years ago, maybe 20. And of course, the robot looks very realistic. And it looks like the robot is actually driving, and Elon is sitting next to him and critiquing his driving skills. But anyway, we thought that would be an appropriate picture because, or background image, because today we're going to talk or start this discussion with something that I feel is a major breakthrough that I'm not sure that people realize how big this could potentially be. So this is this information, by the way, is extracted from a book that was written by Walter Isaacson called Elon Musk, published September 12th, so it's fairly recent. And the story goes something like this. On Friday, in late August of this year, last month, it turns out Elon got in his Model S at Tesla headquarters in Palo Alto. He selected a random spot on his navigation screen and let the car drive itself using full self-driving technology. And for 45 minutes, while listening to Mozart, he live streamed his trip, and I would imagine that would be on X. I didn't see it, but including a pass-by of the home of Mark Zuckerberg, whom he had been jokingly challenging to a cage fight match. Now, if you notice here, we're changing the narrative a bit. It's no longer a challenge. It was a joking challenge. And then he said, perhaps I should knock on the door and make a polite inquiry as to whether he would like to engage in hand-to-hand combat. It's probably safer having these two guys arm wrestle than having them both go into a cage and attempt to knock each other senseless, because neither of them are really gifted, in my opinion, in that area of physical contact sport. They have plenty of other things to do. So the car drove on, went past Mark's house. Now, it turns out Elon has used full self-driving hundreds of times before, but this drive was profoundly different, and not just because it was much smoother and more reliable. The new version that he was now using is FSD 12, and it's based on a radical new concept that they now believe will not only totally transform autonomous vehicle driving, but also be a quantum leap toward artificial general intelligence that can operate in the physical, real-world situations. So the major difference now between this full self-driving capability and product is that in previous versions, they had written hundreds of thousands of lines of code, and this new system actually taught itself how to drive by, get this, processing billions of frames of video on how humans do it. Just like the new large language model chatbots train themselves to generate answers by processing billions of words of human text. So can we bring up a picture, Jesse? Deval Shroff. And this is one of the young members of Tesla's autopilot team. It doesn't say in the book how instrumental he was in creating any of this, but he seems to be on the forefront. And they quote him, "It's like ChatGPT, but for cars," says Deval Shroff. And he explained that he had a meeting with Elon in December of last year, and comparing the idea that they were working on to the chatbot that had just been released by OpenAI, which is a lab that Elon Musk co-founded in 2015. He says, we process an enormous amount of data on how real human drivers acted in complex driving situations. And then we train the computer's neural network. Now, let me give you a quick definition of neural network. And Jesse, there's another image that you can pop up. It's called neural network, actually. And here's the definition. A neural network is a series of algorithms that endeavor to recognize underlying relationships in a set of data through a process that mimics the way the human brain operates. It's how we as humans learn. And then we train the computer's neural network to mimic that. Now, until then, Tesla's autopilot system had been relying for years on rules-based approach. So the cameras in the cars identified such things as lane markings, pedestrians, vehicles, signs, and traffic signals. In its simplest form, the code identifies a octagon-shaped stop sign, for example, color, the text on it, and then it applies a set of rules such as stop when the light is red, go when it's green, stay in the middle of the lane markers, proceed through an intersection only when there are no cars coming fast enough to hit you, and so on and so forth. Now, Tesla's engineers manually wrote and updated hundreds of thousands of lines of C++ code to apply these rules to complex situations. The neural network planner that Schroff and others are working on took a completely different approach. Instead of determining the proper path of the car based on rules, they determined the car's proper path by relying on a neural network that learns from millions of examples of what humans have done. Now get that, millions of examples. In other words, it's human imitation. So faced with a situation, the neural network chooses a path based on what humans have done in thousands or millions of similar situations. It's exactly the way that humans learn to speak, drive, play chess, even eat spaghetti, as they say, and do almost everything else. We might be given a set of rules to follow, but mainly we pick up skills by observing how other people do them. Now, this was an approach to machine learning that was envisioned actually by Alan Turing in his 1950s paper, way in the last century, called Computing, Machinery, and Intelligence. So by early 2023 now, this year, the Neural Network Planner project had analyzed 10 million clips of video collected from the cars of Tesla customers. Now, if you remember, we've been talking about this and how for, I think well over a year. All of this information that Tesla is collecting, what are they going to do with it? What value does it have? And as you begin to ponder that, you begin to realize it has enormous value into a number of different areas, from advertising to predictive analysis, to testing driving habits, for example, and skills. Let me grab a few questions here before we get too far. YouTube, Marius Moraru has joined us. Thank you. Instagram, Hussein_24. Welcome from Morocco. Well, thank you. Now, those of you on Instagram, we're still dialing in our green screen behind us. If you were able to see it, Instagram members, you would see Elon Musk looking at a robot sitting in a car, driving a car, and it's the AI representation of full self-driving. We're still working on it, and it's the streaming service currently that is giving us problems, but we hope to have that solved at some point at least. We have another Instagram visitor, Arnav.Thakor. He says, big fan. Thank you very much. Those of you that want the full experience, by the way, you can switch to YouTube, and you can see the image in the backdrop and also the images that Jesse is popping up. YouTube, Peter Garten says, hello from Sweden. Regarding the fight, I guess you're not aware that Mark has been training in martial arts for quite some years. I'm fully aware of that, and that's one of my concerns. One of these guys is going to get hurt. And, one has a weight advantage, the other one has some martial arts training experience. And again, my take on this is, guys, it's not what we revere you for and hold you in esteem for. We feel that you are great business leaders, you're visionaries, you're at the helm of some major corporations. You're able to influence events on a global scale. Look at this latest thing with the Starlink and Ukrainians and shutting off Starlink or never activating it and affecting the outcome of that war. You guys are definitely business leaders, and that's where we want you guys to stay and be active in. Hitting each other is not part of what we expect you guys to do. Anyway, that's my take on it. YouTube, Leto, Idaho. Hi, guys. I'm from Hopkinsville, Kentucky. Thank you, Leto. You've been on our show before. So staying with this for a moment now. Big breakthrough, huge breakthrough, in my opinion. Full self-driving finally has a chance to actually become real, live, accurate, and better than human driving. So by 2023, the Neural Network Planner project had analyzed 10 million clips of videos collected from cars of Tesla customers. Now remember, when you're driving a Tesla, it's constantly recording everything that's going on, where you are, how fast you're going, who's in the car, what's around you, and what the car is doing and what it's saying, what kind of problems it has. Now, they say, did that mean that it would merely be as good as average human drivers? Well, for God's sake, I hope not. The last thing we want to do is create another batch of crappy drivers out there on the road that are driving up insurance, keeping collision shops fed, and creating dangerous situations on the road. Human beings, in my opinion, are not generally equipped to handle a 5,000 pound projectile at 70, 80 miles or at lethal speeds, because they get distracted. There's cell phones. There's makeup that they need to put on. Their kids in the back. There's a dog that's barking. A bee just went in the car and they're freaking out. It's all kinds of dangerous deviations that make human drivers very dangerous on the road, which of course the accident rates and the fatality rates attest to. So would this collection of data without filtering be of value? Well, absolutely not. But here's what Tesla did. They used data from humans when they handled situations well. Now, this is, again, Deval Shroff is explaining this. Human labelers, many of them based in Buffalo, New York, where Tesla has a facility, assessed the videos and gave them grades. And Elon told them to look for things that a 5-star Uber driver would do, or a Formula One driver, or anyone that's highly skilled in driving a vehicle. And those were the videos that were used to train the computer. Now, that makes perfect sense. Apparently, Elon regularly walked through the autopilot workspace in Palo Alto. He knelt next to engineers for impromptu discussions. So he's a very hands-on CEO, it looks like. By the way, later in discussion, we're going to talk about the value of CEOs and how not all of them have very much value. I'm a CEO, so I'll chime in as well. As he studied the human imitation approach for full self-driving, he had a question. Was it truly needed? Might this be a bit of overkill? Now, one of Elon's maxims is that you should never use a cruise missile to kill a fly, just use a fly swatter. So, was using neural network unnecessarily complicated for full self-driving? Well, apparently Deval Shroff showed Musk instances where a neural network planner would work better than a rules-based approach. One of those examples was a demo that they had, which was a road littered with trash cans, fallen traffic cones, and random debris. It turns out that a car guided by the neural network planner was able to skitter around the obstacles, crossing the lane lines, and breaking some rules as necessary. Now remember, rules-based stuff isn't going to work that way. It's going to follow a black and white path. In the human world, we realize that sometimes you have to deviate from your lane. You have to get out onto the median to avoid a head-on collision, and all those things are acceptable to avoid a major disaster. So he said, now this is Duvall, here's what happens when we move from rules-based to network path-based approach. The car will never get into a collision if you turn this thing on, even in unstructured environments. Now, they say that this was a type of leap into the future that excited everyone at Tesla. So then Elon said, we should do a James Bond-style demonstration where there are bombs exploding on all sides, a UFO is falling from the sky, while the car speeds through without hitting anything. Well, it turns out that the machine learning system generally needed a metric that guides them as they train themselves, and Elon, who likes to manage by decreeing what metrics should be paramount, he gave them an example. Let's collect, or let's measure the number of miles that cars with full self-driving were able to travel without human intervention. So what they did was, he told them this is like a video game where they could see their score every day. And video games without scores are boring, so it will be motivating to watch each day as the miles into or per intervention increases. So what they did for some of the team members on this full self-driving V12 team, they gave them 85-inch television monitors in their workspace that displayed how in real time, how many miles full self-driving cars were driving on average without human intervention. And then they put a gong near their desks, so whenever they successfully solved a problem causing an intervention, they got to bang the gong. There's a song by that name, I think. You know, this is reminiscent of what we do in our sales team. And we used to have these. I just bought 6 more, reminding myself that this was a great motivator. If you remember those little red, that was easy buttons. In our sales team, when somebody closed some business, found a prospect that was interested, got a quote opportunity, they were able to walk to a section of the call center, push that button, and everybody realized that they hit a milestone. So thank you guys at Tesla for giving us that idea to reignite that program. Let's grab a few questions here. YouTube, Lightning Rod. Hello, how are you doing? Hello from Thunder Bay. Instagram, Julio CP88. Yo, love your stuff. I feel smart just listening to you. Well, thank you. Chime in, guys. We do not know it all here. We're disseminating information and finding exciting things to talk about. Niles is with us from Denmark. He says, morning. Most of the video clips of human drivers show how not to drive. Oh, very true, Niles. Different drivers break the laws in different ways. Many conflicts. There will be trouble using those for training. A lot of filtering, I'm sure. YouTube, Leto, Idaho says, when they have electric crane motors to convert ICE cars. You know, that movement is well underway, the ICE to EV conversion. And it'll, of course, be focused on the collectible cars or the vintage cars. No one's going to convert a 1985 Ford or BMW. There's no value in that at this point. YouTube, Niles again, he says, then there are all the different traffic rules in different countries. Slow down before the sign or after the sign, right of the way when merging for faster or slower cars, and so on and so on. You know, later on in this discussion here, we're going to get into some of those deviations, and one I found humorous. But let me get through the rest of this. Leto, Idaho. I'm thinking of Nash Airflyful conversion. And Avatar, I meant crate motors. Okay, there you go. That makes perfect sense. Yes, crate motors were pretty big in the last century. You could actually replace that stock motor with something that was far more efficient, more horsepower, and faster. Niles also says more region-specific rules are needed, but not rules for maneuvering, but as a framework within which AI can play. But they seem to think that AI can learn to drive by itself. It cannot. A simple left turn should be a piece of cake, but it's still more of a gamble with the wheel making little jerky moves. That behavior probably comes from the training from the different human drive styles. Thank you, Niles. YouTube lightning rod. I think conversions are a highly undervalued opportunity. We believe so too. So anyway, continuing with this, by mid-April of 2023, it was time for Elon and company to try the new neural network planner. As he sat in the driver's seat next to Ashok Elliswamy, one of Tesla's directors of autopilot software, three members of the autopilot team got in the back, and as they prepared to leave the parking lot at Palo Alto's office complex, apparently Elon selected a location on the map for the cars to go and took his hands off the wheel. So when the car turned onto the main road for the first time, it was a scary challenge that arose because a bicyclist was heading their way. And on its own, the car yielded just as a human driver would have done. For 25 minutes now, the car drove on fast roads and neighborhood streets, handling complex turns and avoiding cyclists, pedestrians, and pets. Also, it turns out Musk never touched the wheel. Only a couple of times did he intervene by tapping the accelerator when he thought the car was being overly cautious. And now here's an example of what he meant by that, such as when it was too deferential at a four-way stop sign. Now, those of you that drive, it's always humorous to me. It's a fairly simple process. You've got a four-way stop sign. You can clearly see the four signs. And there's always someone at that stop that isn't sure when they're supposed to go. Well, if you are able to watch and you have side vision, you can see who got there first, who got there last, and then make that decision. But invariably, you can put yourself in a dangerous situation by proceeding because the other person is not doing so, and then at the last moment they lurch forward, and then you've got a possible safety issue. So that was the only time that they noticed with this new neural network FSD that that they had to tap, or that Elon had to tap the accelerator pedal. At one point, the car conducted a maneuver that he thought was better than he would have done, and he said, this is Elon, "Oh, wow, even my human neural network failed here, but the car did the right thing." He was so pleased that he started whistling Mozart's A Little Night Music Serenade in G major. Now, at the end of this, Elon gave praise to the team. He said, "This is really impressive." And there were 20 guys at the next weekly meeting, the autopilot team. And apparently they almost all were in black T-shirts, which is kind of what we do here, if you've noticed. We actually started doing that, and I'll release one of the secrets, not the sunglass secret, but the black shirt secret. We do a lot of photography here, and black clothes definitely are more advantageous because you don't show up as much in the reflections on whatever it is you're photographing. So these 20 guys in black T-shirts sat around a conference table to hear the verdict. So many had not believed that the neural network project would work, but Elon declared that he was now a believer and they should move forward with their resources to push it forward. Now, during the discussion, it turns out Elon latched onto a key fact that the team had discovered, that the neural network did not work well until it had been trained on at least 1 million video clips. Now, remember, they have a lot more than 1 million. So if that's the cutoff, we think that this thing is going to be even more accurate. Now, the ramifications, and this is what we've been intrigued by. This gives Tesla a huge advantage over our other car and AI companies because, remember, Elon and company have a fleet of almost 2 million Teslas around the world collecting video clips every single day. They are uniquely positioned to do this. So the ramifications of this are massive for Tesla. Again, a whole nother revenue-generating opportunity for Tesla in a couple of places. Now Tesla is in a position to license full self-driving. None of these other EV startups, manufacturers are in a position to have anything this accurate or this sophisticated. And if rules-based FSD is on its way out, and neural network FSD based on real live examples is on its way in, then Tesla again is in the driver's seat, just like they were with many other things, such as their charging standard. Now here's an interesting side note. 4 months later, this new system was ready to replace the old approach and become the basis of full self-driving 12, which Tesla plans to release as soon as regulators approve it. Now remember, you've got to go through some approval processes here before they can actually turn this on in the cars. But there's still one problem to overcome. Human drivers, even the best, usually fudge traffic rules. And here's an example. Since this FSD is imitating what humans do, it turns out that more than 95% of humans creep slowly through stop signs rather than coming to a complete stop. It's called the California stop. And those of you that drive, of course, you probably do it yourself. I mean, why come to a complete stop if there's no one in the intersection, no one's around, and there's no cop watching you? Now, I'm not suggesting that you blow through a stop sign. We do need to follow traffic laws because that's what keeps us safe. But so how is FSD, which is learning from the way that the best of us drive, going to handle this? Well, it turns out that the National Highway Safety Board, which is weighing in on whether version 12 FSD is ready, they are studying whether this slow creeping through stop signs should be permissible for full self-driving cars as well. So there's a little humor in this whole project. Bunch of comments here. YouTube Lightning Rod, he said, what is really needed is an indexing system for components to convert a vehicle. Okay, we're talking about the conversion of doing ICE vehicle conversions to EVs. And of course, a plug-and-play method, something that allows even a novice to do a conversion because the mounting holes and the mounting surfaces are all prepared for this EV conversion. TikTok, Xmodad says, hey there, I love your videos. I watch them all the time. Well, thank you. And we do have a lot of them. YouTube, Jennifer Montgomery says, the problem with abandoning rules-based approach in full self-driving, of course, is that some cops and police departments are very ticket happy. They'll see drivers, especially those who aren't white, not following the rules of the road, and they'll give a ticket to them. Well, there's a whole nother legal question here. In my mind, if you're sitting there and you're not piloting the vehicle, now granted, you can't quite go in the back seat yet and read a book or watch a video. You're going to be sitting in that driver's seat, prepared to take over. What happens if your full self-driving violates or breaks a traffic law? Who should get that ticket? First of all, who will get that ticket? And if you go to court, will the judge lean in your favor if you're able to say, I wasn't driving, Judge. It wasn't me. It was the car.
Well, the problem now is that Tesla's current FSD beta, the 11.4.7 and the enhanced autopilot, I believe that they imitate the traffic around you. So the traffic around you is violating traffic laws. It's very likely that you could still be ticketed even though you're on an automated system.
And let's put this all back in perspective. Ever since COVID, certain traffic laws are no longer being enforced, at least aggressively. In Phoenix, for example, no one does the speed limit. If you're doing the speed limit, you're creating a safety hazard typically, and you see that on the road all the time. The worst ones are the ones in the left lane, the passing lane, doing the speed limit, and everybody's passing them on the right, which is a dangerous place to pass typically. There's some blind spots there that are not in the left or that are not in the left lane passing. So yeah, good point, Jesse. But again, the thing that I found most fascinating about this version 12 potential release from Tesla is that it, again, places Tesla in the driver's seat. And the other EV manufacturers are going to be highly motivated to license their technology and adapt that to their EVs because it will be the most sophisticated full self-driving on the planet. Now, will the other guys be able to catch up? Well, as Mike Maloney said, who was on our podcast last week twice, hell no. Tesla is moving away so fast that even at full throttle, the other guys can't catch up. So, licensing, using their technology, buying some of their product and incorporating that into their EVs, I think is going to be vital to the future success of any of these EV manufacturers. And we're not even going to throw in the UAW situation currently that could also affect these other incumbent manufacturers, auto manufacturers. TikTok, American Lives Save the World. He says, you are awesome. Well, thank you. Have you communicated changes to Tesla that would make your job easier? We actually do communicate with Tesla in the areas of their first vehicle Roadster, intellectual property, and aging processes that we see the cars going through. Remember that we're out here repairing more Tesla Roadsters than anyone on the planet. And we see a lot of things now as these cars are aging, which are vital to improve the design, position with certain types of parts, help their supply chain, and help their service centers identify and do problem resolution. And yes, we do share a lot of that with Tesla. Facebook and YouTube, Anthony Venditti says, I think that the FSD mode is a great idea, really cool, but I don't think it's ready yet. I have FSD in my Model Y, and it's far from perfect. You're absolutely right, Anthony. When I drove my P90D Ludicrous all the time, it had a version of full self-driving, and that thing would kill you. It would go right through a red light because it didn't know what a red light was. So you definitely had to be diligent and fully aware and could not trust the car completely. Niles from Denmark says on YouTube, humans are required to learn all traffic rules too from a rule book. They don't learn them from observation. That would be chaos. A good point. TikTok, Ghost, left lane hoggers. Yeah, those are the worst. I agree. Facebook, Anthony Venditti says, as an example here in Vegas, we have bike lanes. Sometime when you are driving in the right lane next to the bike lane, the car will get schizo next to the bike lane, and sometimes the car will come to a stop. Doesn't quite know how to handle that. Now, that sounds like something that would be rule-based. If, for example, millions of video examples of people successfully driving along with a bicyclist in that lane would probably not result in that kind of a result where the car comes to a stop.
Yeah, everybody, Anthony and everybody else that has FSD is talking about rules-based. The 12 neural network version isn't out yet. Nobody has that, except Elon.
And, if what Elon says is true, by the end of this year, they feel that if the regulators, of course, cooperate, because we have to get this thing approved, it'll be fun to see that on the road. Now, turns out that I'm going to shift gears here for a moment. Google is apparently ready to release a text-to-video program. We don't know much about it yet, but they're currently putting guardrails on it, and the biggest guardrail is they're not going to allow you to create people-based video. The reasons for that will, I'm sure, become transparent here fairly quickly. But for those of you that know anything about it, we'd love to hear from you. At this point, what we have in AI, at least available to the public, is Midjourney. And Midjourney creates stills. It creates images, just like the image behind me here when I said to AI, give me a full self-driving image with a passenger in the back seat. And again, because it heard FSD, it decided, well, FSD and Elon are pretty closely linked. Let's throw a likeness of Elon into the picture from maybe 20 years ago or so. And let's put a robot in there with his hands on what appears might be a wheel. But this is what Midjourney generated based on that prompt. All right. Speaking of AI, by the way, I found an interesting comment here on one of the videos that we did about AI. And the notion was that AI was going to replace humans in the workplace at some point or certain types of jobs. The comment that this gentleman made was, if we can replace every judge, politician, and lawyer with an incorruptible, intelligent system, I'm all for it. Now, of course, the key here is incorruptible, and what we mean by that is AI without prejudice, without bias, and without hallucination. Facebook, Anthony Venditti says, thank you, Peter, for all your chats and commentary. You're welcome. All right. Now, here's an interesting article that I came across, and this was, the headline on this was, AI, can it replace CEOs? Well, as the article starts off, it says that most jobs seem ripe to be replaced by artificial intelligence, with one notable exception. The only job that seems to be safe from the rise of ChatGPT and other AI tech is, oddly enough, the most expensive and easily automated role of CEO. Now, the article says two things here, and let's bounce back and forth between their position on this. They say that CEOs have recently spent a lot of time threatening to replace their lazy, entitled, and unproductive workers with AI, but they never seem to face the same level of scrutiny that other employees do. And look a little closer, they say, and it becomes clear that the role of the modern CEO is not only broken, but it could easily be done by technology that we have currently. Now, let me preface this. I am the CEO of 4 companies here, actually 5, sorry about that. And combined revenue here is about $30 million a year. We're not a very large company, but we do have a lot of staff, a lot of middle management, a lot of top-notch talent here. And the first thing that I'm always able to admit is Pete Gruber is not doing all the magic here. It's legions of highly qualified, intelligent, bright people with very specific skills that I do not have. And any great CEO realizes you can't do it all yourself. The skill that we have is building teams, hiring the right people, and then getting out of their way. We are tasked with pushing vision. And here's where the article gets a little bit more to the point. Now, the first thing they say, that America's top CEOs make over 300 times more than the average worker. I assure you that is not me. I do not make that much or anywhere near it. But of course, there are CEOs that make huge sums of money. The most recent one that's in the news quite regularly is Pete Rawlinson, the CEO of Lucid, who with stock options last year made $370 million or somewhere in that neighborhood. And Mary Barra made less than a tenth of that, only $34 million. All right. So they talk about the fact that CEOs are most likely overpaid. Now, they say that these CEOs, their primary duty is to make easily replicable optimization decisions based not on real-world understanding of the business, but inputs from spreadsheets that are fed to them by consultants. So they say, far from being actual contributors to a company's bottom line, this century's superstar CEOs have ushered in a generation of executives who operate mainly as figureheads with little actual responsibility or accountability. So he says the solution is fairly simple. We must hold today's CEOs accountable in the same way that we do their employees, or dissolve their roles entirely. A CEO must make meaningful contributions in the way that is measurable and delivers clear value to the company. Failing that, he argues that the opaque role of the CEO should be the first one to be replaced by AI. An AI model would likely give quicker answers, agreed, be in continual state of self-improvement, agreed, take feedback instantly, and deliver the same kind of operational efficiency for which the current crop of CEOs are paid millions or hundreds of millions of dollars per year. So there's a comedian, apparently, Scott Seiss, that put it this way on a TikTok post. He says, "Let's replace our employees with AI?" Question mark. No. Let's replace our CEOs with AEI. Actually, AI is too advanced for that job, so all you need is a Fisher-Price tape recorder loaded up with a bunch of bad ideas. Well, that's pretty harsh. But that's his impression of what value CEOs provide. Now, they go on. They say CEOs like to project an image of invincibility. Without them, the directionless company will fall apart. You can't replace me, the attitude screams. I'm just too valuable. So what is it exactly that these executives are doing on a daily basis that creates so much value? All right, now here Harvard chimes in. A 2018 Harvard study of 27 CEOs tried to answer this question. And the final report put the executives' various tasks into impressive-sounding buckets like people and relationships, functional and business unit reviews, and strategy. But digging deeper, they say, it's clear that these painfully vague allocation of times are masking the fact that executives have a great deal of trouble telling you what they do for a living. Most of the time is spent in meetings, talking about strategy, and making big calls rather than contributing meaningfully to the organization through either experience or actual execution. They say that when even CEOs of major corporations are given the chance to clearly state the value they offer to a company, it comes across as noxious word salad. I love that sentence. A former Procter & Gamble CEO, A.G. Lafley, wrote a 2009 Harvard Business Review article called "What Only the CEO Can Do." Once described as the most successful CEO in Procter & Gamble's history, Lafley made as much as $19.5 million per year in his role. And here's how he described his role of CEO. He says, "Don't get me wrong, a company does generally need a figurehead, and you need someone with a company-wide perspective, true, who can guide an organization and make decisions. You need someone who defines the mission and then holds the company to that mission. But if the executive's role only, if the executive's only role is to make these decisions with no other contribution or accountability for the results, the role loses much of its value." And here they go on. CEOs have become final managers, disconnected ideas guys like Elon Musk, who gets credit for every major success without being fired for a single major failure. Without connecting their outsized pay to the results of their decision, there is no reason to have a CEO. Now, remember, one of the arguments that Elon actually made about Pete Rawlinson is that you carefully have to look at a company that does not tie executive pay to performance. Now, of course, Elon has also been the beneficiary of that, having received stock options even during the lean years of Tesla's trajectory. They say that without connecting their outsized pay to the results of their decisions, there is no reason to have a CEO. If the job of a CEO is simply to take data and regurgitate extrapolations that deliver efficiency, quote unquote, I can think of no role more appropriate for AI replacement. All right, so this got me thinking, what is my role here at our $30 million companies? And again, it is disseminate vision, disseminate mission, and make sure that the overall big picture objectives are being met, and be there for our managers that are actually driving these missions and these successes that we have. All right, I'm sure people want to chime in on this one. No. All right. Good. YouTube. Niall says predictions are for anyone, and I think others will indeed catch up. We're talking about self-driving, full self-driving again. Self-driving will become part of any new car and turning into cheap commodity. Like cheap computers are part of almost anything. You know, one thing that one of our guests here last week put the limelight on, that full self-driving, as it becomes more accurate, which of course is just around the corner, that insurance rates will decrease substantially for people that have full self-driving and are using it. And conversely, insurance rates for people that choose to drive themselves will become astronomically high and unaffordable, eventually forcing people into the adoption of full self-driving. Currently, I think FSD from Tesla is around $14,000. Well, that seems steep. But again, if your insurance rates are climbing, at one point in time, I think there will be a crossover point where it's cheaper for you to adopt, use, and buy full self-driving than to try to pay for your own insurance because you want to be at the wheel. And personally, I welcome that change. Those of you that drive on the roads every day, you know how dangerous it's getting out there. My wife and I both will not start the car at a green light until we've looked both directions to look for the red light runners, because Phoenix has a significant percentage of those dangerous people on the roads. Everybody seems to want to make the red light a suggestion at the very tail end and assumes that they can get through that intersection safely because no one yet is ready to lurch the instant the light turns green. And of course, nothing could be further from the truth. You see the tow trucks on the roads and the ambulances all the time that say something very opposite to that. All right. Talking about CEOs again. Apparently, David Zaslav, who is the CEO of Warner Brothers, they claim has been a major part of the reason that Hollywood strikes have gone on for far too long, for months now. Now, David Zaslav makes $39 million per year, last year anyway, along with other members of the Alliance of Motion Pictures and Television Producers. They have helped now, by prolonging this strike, to suck as much as $5 billion out of the California economy and the entertainment industry. And it's not as if this business of decision-making at his own company is earning high marks with investors either, since the merger of Warner Brothers and Discovery in 2022, the company's combined market cap has dropped by $20 billion. So again, they're questioning the CEO's effectiveness in his involvement in that company. All right. By the way, let's pop up a picture, Jesse. It's Deval Ruff, who we've been talking about as one of the bright young people at Tesla that has been convincing Elon that the neural-based full self-driving is a far better approach than the rules-based. And here he is at his screen working feverishly. I don't know if this is Buffalo or if it's Palo Alto. If any of you know, we'd love to hear from you. But a lot of credit to this young man who apparently has Elon's ear and has been able to demonstrate, along with a team, of course, that this neural network approach to full self-driving, collecting millions of videos and using that as a benchmark to teach full self-driving how to do it, and also using artificial intelligence, of course. All right. Interesting article that I found last week. Here's a headline. If we become the less intelligent species, we should expect to be wiped out. Now, remember, everybody's afraid of the fact, well, as AI becomes more popular, more intelligent, and begins to infiltrate, what will happen to humans? Is it possible that we won't just lose jobs, that at some point in time the Hollywood prediction will become true and that AI will consider us unnecessary and wipe out the human population? Well, what this article goes on to extrapolate on is it has happened many times before that a species was wiped out by others that were smarter. We humans have already wiped out a significant fraction of all species on Earth. So that's what you should expect to happen if a less intelligent species, which is likely what we are to become, given at the rate of progress of AI. The tricky thing is that the species that is going to be wiped out often has no idea why or how. Now they give an example.
Hey, Pete, real quick.
Yeah.
We have a time-sensitive one up there from Highlander.
Highlander. All right. Hi, how are you? Hi, gang. We're running a garage sale. Can only stay a moment. Posted for free on Facebook garage site. I'm swamped. Well, that's good. I love garage sales. If you were closer to me, I'd go. They just have to say our saying, and our saying is, kindness is free. Thank you, Highlander. All right, so we're talking about extinction, extermination of a species. And it has happened throughout history that when a species becomes less intelligent than another, there's some risk that that less intelligent species may get wiped out. And the example they give. Take, for example, the West African black rhinoceros. It is one recent species that we, human beings, drove to extinction. Now, if you had asked, and you could speak to the African black rhinoceros, and maybe with AI soon we can, if you had asked them, under what scenario do you think humans are going to drive your species to extinction? What would they think? Well, they would never have guessed that some people thought that their sex life would improve if they ate ground-up rhinoceros horn, even though this was debunked in medical literature. So if any scenario comes to mind with the caveat that most likely all the scenarios we can imagine are going to be wrong, this one proves the point. So I guess what we're saying here is we have no idea what justification AI could possibly come up with to wipe out the human race, although those of us that are optimistic, embracing new technology, and thinking that this is going to never happen, would like to think that AI is going to be far too intelligent to ever consider making a species extinct. Because as Spock pointed out in Star Trek, driving a species to extinction is illogical. Love that phrase. All right. AI chatbots were tasked to run a tech company, it turns out, and they built software in under 7 minutes for less than $1. And the AI chatbots they used were powered by models like ChatGPT that can efficiently and cost-effectively run a software company with minimal human intervention. Now, this was from a study by researchers from Brown University and a Chinese university. So these AI bots were assigned roles and completed various software development tasks, demonstrating their ability to make logical decisions and troubleshoot bugs. On average, ChatDev, as this software was called, is the hypothetical AI-powered company that completed software development in under 7 minutes for less than $1 in cost. And the study identified some limitations. It highlights that the potential for AI to assist in software development and other tasks across industries. So here's another news item. Artificial intelligence. Oh, we've got a question here. YouTube, Jennifer Montgomery says, within a decade, banks are going to prefer EV buyers over ICE because of the lower cost of maintenance. Good point. It'll be the same story for full self-driving equipped vehicles versus those without FSD one day. Let me give you an example of that. I lived in the last century. I lived through the muscle car era, and we all enjoyed an even insurance rate. The only variation was age-based. That makes sense. You know, the 18-year-olds aren't going to drive exactly like someone that's middle-aged, that's more cautious, that has more years under their belt, has more driving skills perhaps. And what ended up happening was a company called Liberty Mutual, which is still in existence today, by the way, decided to look at their risk management portfolios and decided that a much higher risk was the younger drivers and those with performance cars, muscle cars. And they began to attach an additional fee based on horsepower and on engine size and even engine or car brand. And according to those of us that lived in the last century, a lot of people began to blame Liberty Mutual for killing the muscle car market. There were other considerations as well, though, when OPEC decided to penalize the U.S. by raising the price of oil, which then made gas guzzlers very unpopular because the price at the pumps began to climb. And we had a rationing system and long lines at the pump. There was a wake-up call in the United States, and people began to prefer those small four-banger engines. Back then it was Datsuns and Toyotas and some of the German cars, the Opels, anything that had a small displacement engine. But that in combination with Liberty Mutual deciding that risk management told them that they needed to charge more for certain cubic inch displacement was blamed for the killing of the muscle car era, and then it went dormant for a long time. I remember you could buy a Hemi car for next to nothing because nobody wanted them. 25 years later, a Hemi car was fetching sometimes millions of dollars. So anyway, your point is well taken. There is going to be a major upheaval in the insurance rates, as Mike Maloney pointed out. And if you have full self-driving, it has been proven as being better at maneuvering our roads, reducing accident rates, reducing collision rates. The shift is going to be to people that want to have their hands on the wheels. And someday you may not be able to afford to do that anymore. It'll be a sad day because there's some of us that really enjoy driving and that are good at it, or at least I think I am. All right. AI and social media and content creation. It looks like Instagram might be getting into generative AI regarding panoramas. They are incorporating generative AI as hinted by an update in their iOS app. So this aligns with Instagram's ongoing experimentation with AI-related features, which will potentially expand its offerings in AI-generated content. Now, there are no details available yet. There are just some hints. But if you're looking to Instagram, keep an eye on that company because it looks like AI is beginning to creep into that. YouTube announces AI-powered creative guidance in Google Ads. Now, here's welcome news for us. We're always confused by, why did this video that we spent 3 weeks on developing, producing, directing, and scripting get far fewer views than that quick ad hoc video that we threw together that we popped out onto TikTok and eventually onto YouTube, and it's taking off like a rocket? Well, it turns out that YouTube is announcing an AI-powered creative guidance in Google Ads. What this features is, and will evaluate video ads against Google's best practices and provides actionable suggestions, in other words, advice for improvement. It will focus on elements like logo visibility, brand logo visibility, video duration. How long should your video run? Do those 2-hour videos, are they really in your best interest, or is that algorithm really going to want you to keep it to 21.5 minutes, the optimum? Voiceover quality, aspect ratio, and AI-driven advertising solutions, including AI-powered video campaigns. All of this has shown the potential to increase conversion rates and lower ad costs. However, they say it's important to note that AI recommendations are based on historical data. So there could always be a bluebird. You know, you throw a video out there and even the algorithm did not realize that this particular video was going to take off like a rocket. YouTube, Jennifer Montgomery says, thank you. It was very interesting to hear about the history of vehicles and insurance during the oil embargo days. Yes, I was there. Instagram, Nice Life 2223 says, hi, welcome. And again, you're probably just looking at green screen. We're close. We're very close. Just like AI full self-driving, we're very close to solving that green screen problem on Instagram. All right. Character.ai surpasses ChatGPT in mobile apps. So Character.ai, and I haven't used it, Jesse. Have you used it? No?
No, I have not.
It now uses it's an AI app that allows users to create their own AI characters, and it's gaining traction in the US with 4.2 million monthly users now, closely training ChatGPT's 6 million users. Now, it was launched in May of 2023. Character AI's impressive growth and user retention can be attributed to its mobile app focus, which appeals to a younger demographic, while ChatGPT dominates the web. So we'll see how that takes off. Now, here's an interesting one: AI in entertainment and marketing. Apparently, AI robots took seats at the latest NFL game at the SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles, where the Chargers were playing the, who does it say here? I don't even know now. Anyway, it was a Chargers game, and they were attempting to promote Disney's upcoming sci film, The Creator. Now, these robots, hopefully they bought tickets, they're probably expensive tickets, were intermingled amongst the audience, displayed on the stadium's video screen, and interacting with human fans. Now, this isn't the first time Disney has apparently done this, to use the stadium for film promotions, leveraging its proximity to Hollywood. Now, this event occurs amid labor tensions in the entertainment industry, where AI's role and compensation for creative workers is debated. And it is a passionate debate, I'm sure. This marketing stunt, by the way, follows similar initiatives like Paramount's creepy actors at MLB Stadium for the promotion of the Smile horror film.
Got the picture up.
Perfect. There we go. You know, from a distance, it almost looks like humans. Now, if they had a beer in their hand, you'd probably hard to tell, wouldn't it? And some popcorn.
I mean, the ears are a little off.
Yeah. So it turns out that the LA Chargers are leaning into their Hollywood home to promote movies, and these AI robots were placed during Week 1 game against the Miami Dolphins. There you go, to help promote this film. The Creator movie debuts in theaters September 29th, so that's just a week away, from Disney's 20th Century Studios. Now get the plot. Of course, this is Hollywood. The plot is focused on a future war between humans and artificial intelligence. Now, you know that anything else would never have sold as many tickets as this plot, because we're playing into people's fears, which is the very reason we do this podcast, is to attempt to provide some sanity and calm people down and get them to learn to embrace these type of technologies, new technologies. But Disney's going to do a fairly good job, just like Jaws, to create some more FUD and, of course, sell a lot of tickets and maybe even make our podcast even more popular, because we're going to help diffuse some of this fear. So Disney showed the robots in the crowd, and the figures were moving their robotic heads and sitting next to human fans. All right. Now, this strike, by the way, with the creators, promoters, comes as the SAG-AFTRA. I have no idea what that acronym stands for, but it is the Writers Guild of America, on strike over labor tensions in Hollywood that has largely stemmed from lack of compensation from streaming services and AI's threat to creative workers. Now, when this first came out, my suggestion was, guys, if you're going to strike, I think your timing's off. Here we have these AI tools that will eventually be instrumental in assisting with these kinds of services, script writing, for example. Is this the best time for you guys to strike, now forcing studio execs to explore alternatives? And now, of course, we could go into the UAW strike, where here we have a bunch of incumbent auto manufacturers on the very edge of survival, now being saddled with many additional costs that may make them less viable. As Jim Farley, CEO of Ford, pointed out, hey, this may send us into bankruptcy. What have the UAW workers at this point in time achieved? They're out of work. All right. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say. I hope we don't get too many flaming responses from that. But the level of creativity, the computers, according to Bomani Jones, who is a sports media personality, he says the level of creativity the computers have are never going to be able to replace. That will always necessitate people. That's a timed prediction, sir. And I think that as this thing progresses, you may change that position. He says what AI can do, all AI can do is write a game story. There's a lot of things in our world that AI cannot really do, and that's why employment prospects are going to remain for humans. Now, Jones, by the way, is an ESPN writer, a host, and he attended a picket line event outside the CPS Broadcast Center in New York to show support for the Hollywood writers on this strike. So it's clear what his position on this is. All right, got another one for you. And this has to do with Coca-Cola and AI. But before we get there, Rich Rebuild. George is joining us. Welcome, George. He says, yeah, we want 2 hours video. No, I'm not going to keep Jesse here past, in fact, we're already at an hour. And I have my granddaughter today, who, by the way, is 10 months. She's inches away from being able to walk across the room. She'll take 2 steps and then decide, ooh, this is not safe, and grab for something. But we're almost there. And at 10 months, she may be the earliest of our children in our family to ever decide that using her 2 feet to get around is something that she can do. So anyway, let's grab a few more questions. YouTube, RC Robinson Sand, upvote everybody. Well, thank you for upvoting us. George is saying, I told you about this movie weeks ago, The Creator. You're right, you did, and it just hit our press line here. So thank you, George. As always, you're a visionary. Yeah.
On that one up above, you missed the quotes, EV everybody.
Oh, EV everybody. Okay.
He was trying to do a little EV joke.
Okay. As is revolution, where the EV are capital letters.
Mm-hmm.
Jennifer Montgomery, it's not just about how lifelike the AI extras are, but also about the path that people have to get into acting. Some stars like Renee Zellweger and Bruce Willis got their start as extras. Now, there's a whole nother rabbit hole we could go down. As these robots begin to look more human-like, and difficult to distinguish between humans and machines. Remember the Turing test? There eventually will be a test where we're going to be able to measure whether that's a machine or a human, and the distinction is going to blur to the point where actors may be machines and robots, and I'm going to go way out on a limb here, do a better job. Wide range of emotions. They certainly are going to do a better job of being able to take a bullet. Yep. Strength. You know, all of those things, and size. Remember, we can make human-looking robots in any size we want. All right, anyway, continuing here. Let's talk about Coke for a moment. Coke is using AI. They introduced a new mystery flavor. It's made by AI, and it's called Y3000. Now, it's a zero-sugar cola, and it's part of Coca-Cola's ongoing mystery flavor program, aiming to appeal to health-conscious consumers. Well, I'm pretty health-conscious, and guys, if you've got a zero-sugar drink, it's not going to be very healthy. These sugar replacements typically have been found to be less than healthy. Let's phrase it that way. Don't want to bring in the C word there. Now, while the exact extent of AI's involvement in the flavor development process remains unspecified, Coke emphasizes its foray into AI as part of its strategy to stay innovative. The mystery flavor, though, has resonated more with younger consumers, although opinions on Y3000's tastes have been mixed. So there you have it. In one of the last podcasts, we talked about AI's ability to actually smell. The sense of smell that we have 400 receptors, and it is actually sensing a molecular process. And apparently, they've been able to do that with AI these days. And of course, that 400 limitation is going to be is not going to apply to AI. So in the future, AI coupled to some biofeedback devices might be able to help you decide what your most favorite fragrance is. A much better job than your nose is able to do. LinkedIn, Amir Hossein Najal says, "Hi, I hope you're doing well." I am, thank you. We are. I have a question that is, which programming language is essential to learn for a power electronic engineer? And also, what software are essential to learn? Well, in the world of automotive technology, your Linux program is going to be your best bet to become good at. It's open source and also CAN signals and CAN bus technology. It doesn't look like there is any deviation from that with the new products coming out. So we're going to put our vote on Linux and CAN signals.
And it's also Perl is the language that Mark had suggested on a previous podcast.
Good point.
Perl's a good language. Once you learn a programming language, though, it really isn't too...
The similarities.
Yeah, it really doesn't matter. Once you understand the logic of how a programming language works, you just have to learn the semantics of how to do the markup on whichever language.
Good point. Good point. All right. YouTube, Jennifer Montgomery, sugar-free means taste-free. Yeah, could be. George says, Max Headroom was an AI actor, LOL. That's right. I enjoyed that guy. He was kind of jerky and jumpy, wore sunglasses. Did you guys get that? Yep. And was definitely inspiration to those of you, or for those of us in the last century, that began to realize that something else is coming down the pike. And, you know, placing these robots into an NFL stadium, again, what Hollywood has done a very good job of, forever actually, is beginning to get us to think about the future. Many of the things that that Hollywood has done has been prophetic. We talked about the Jetsons in one of the last podcasts, and they acquainted us with Zoom meetings, with flying cars, with wristwatch cell phones. So anyway, good point. Thank you. Instagram envy Tesla. Wow, that's amazing with the AI. Yes, I agree. Well, folks, we are coming to the end of yet another AI podcast. I'm enjoying doing these. We hope you are.
Amir says thank you on LinkedIn.
Thank you, Amir. And anyway, we have other podcasts. Next week, stay tuned. Exciting event. The 3 Chinese barn find Tesla Roadsters are finally here. We were standing out there Friday afternoon, watching a crane unload 8,000-pound containers, dangling them in the air. And, you know, the most amazing takeaway for me was helping guide the sea containers was fun. And I realized that you could take 8,000 pounds and actually move it and control it up in the air without any friction. So these are now placed. Next week, Monday, we're going to crack them open. We're going to do a bunch of diagnostics, and we're going to see what a first-generation Tesla actually looked like when it left the factory. And the backstory, just quickly. In 2010, there were no EVs on the road other than the Tesla Roadster, and any EV and new up-and-coming manufacturer, in order to get any kind of intellectual property, was forced to either poach employees from an existing EV manufacturer, which there were very few of, because during the Roadster days, Tesla did not have a lot of people, or buy a car and reverse engineer it. Well, that's exactly what a Chinese company did. They bought 3 Tesla Roadsters, had them shipped over to Guangdong, China at the dock, fully intended to reverse engineer these. And there's a 4th mysterious Roadster that there are parts for, but the chassis is missing. And we think that that might be one that actually made it to this new EV manufacturer in China. And then reverse engineer to get the intellectual property to figure out how to make cars. Well, it turns out that this Chinese company ran out of money. They went bankrupt before they could reverse engineer the other 3. These cars sat for 13 years in sea containers at the dock until some buyers came along 13 years later, cleared a bunch of storage charges, and now possess these cars and ship them to us for reverse engineering, cleaning them up, and selling them for them. It is a bid basis, so those of you interested can place bids on our website under the Roadsters for Sale portion. And we hope these go to museums, We hope these go into Tesla gigafactories in the front lobbies on display. And we hope no one is foolish enough to buy these and put them on the road, because the instant you do that, all the value in these cars evaporates. What's going to be fun for us is there any life left in that main battery? We don't think so, but we're going to find out. What did a Tesla Roadster look like before anyone took possession? How much plastic was on the seats?
Yeah. We're going to have a lot of different videos coming out, too, of this stuff.
Lots of them on YouTube. Yep. Probably start releasing them next week.
Yeah, we've already got some shorts that'll be coming out, and then we have a couple of plans for each stage of the process.
So join us next week. Tuesday is EV podcast at 10 PST. Wednesday, it's Tesla Roadster podcast, and I'm sure those 3 Roadsters will be the main topic in that one at 10 PST as well. And then Thursday at 10 PST. And Friday is Critical Power. The other team is back. Our manager's back from vacation, so join us for that one if you're interested in uninterruptible power systems and critical power. I'm Pete Gruber signing off, and thank you for joining us.